Namaskar everybody and welcome to 39th day of our Ramayana Satsanga. Lakshmeenatha Samarambham Nathayamuna Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Yo Nityamachyutapadambuja Yugma Rugma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadguror Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye आपदामपहर्तारं दातारं सर्वसम्पदां लोकाभिरामं श्रीरामं भूयो भूयो नमाम्यहम् यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारी परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकम् कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम् वेदवेद्ये परे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदप्राचेतसादासीत् साक्षात् रामायणात्मनाम्. With prayers at the lotus feet of Sri Ramachandra and the Acharyas, let us go to our topic for today. So yesterday we had seen how Hanuman made a prayer. He said a mental prayer to Rama, to Sita, to Lakshmana, to all the devatas, and he prayed very desperately that he should be able to find Sita in that Ashokavana. Now he has entered the Ashokavana and he sat on that Shimshupa tree, and there, to his surprise, he finds that she is there just below that same tree. How did she appear now? Because it was the prayer of Hanuman that made her appear in front of his eyes. So, how does he find her? What is this sight that meets his eyes? Tato malina samvitam rakshasibihi samavritam उपवासकृशां दीनां निःश्वसन्तीं पुनः पुनः ददर्श शुक्लपक्षादौ chandrarekham iva amalam. So Hanuman saw Sita, and how was she? She was dressed in a garment, in a single cloth, which was very dirty. She was surrounded by Rakshasa women. She had become very thin because she was not eating anything, because she was constantly fasting. She was not eating anything. She was looking miserable. She was looking deena. She was sighing again and again, like somebody who is in great pain and trouble. And yet she looked like the pure crescent moon at the beginning of the bright fortnight. So, although there is brightness in her face because of her divine nature, yet she is in this world, in that physical state where she's not had bath for those past 10 months that she's been in this Ashokvana. She's not eaten anything. She's surrounded by these Rakshasa women who are very horrible and very scary. And she's completely miserable in that state. Priyam janam pashyantim rakshasi ganam, swaganena mrigim hinam, shwagana abhivratam iva. She is not seeing any dear people, any of her Priya, the dear people to her, people whom she likes. She is not able to see any such faces around her. But who is there next to her? Only all these Rakshasis are there, these demonesses are there. And how she appears, just like if there is a female deer who has lost its own companions, lost its own deer herd, and it has got surrounded by a group of dogs, how it will look, that tiny deer. Like that, this Sita is appearing in the middle of all those Rakshasis. So, this is how Valmiki describes how Sita appears to the eyes of Hanuman. Now Hanuman sees that she is sitting like this. She is so sad. She is very emaciated. She has become very thin. She is looking as though she has no energy at all. And just as he is thinking what I should do now, how do I approach her? At that point of time, it is about to be dawn. And there, suddenly, there is a loud noise of all some different vadyas. When he looks to see what is happening there, he's still hidden on the tree. Hanuman is hidden on the tree, and he just parts the leaves slightly to see what is happening. And he notices that this Ravana has woken up in those early hours just before the dawn, and he has come with one big group of so many people with him. There are all those beautiful women from his palace. They are all following him. Some are playing musical instruments, some are singing, they are carrying lamps, they are carrying all auspicious things in their hand. And with all these people along with him, this Ravana has come. He's all very gloriously dressed up. He has come there to see Sita. And when he reaches there, he wants to he talks to her and he says, you are so beautiful, you are so this, I will give you all the power in this Lanka, you can enjoy with me, you will be the highest and the most important of all my Ranis, you give in to my desire, you marry me, you come with me, we will have a very good time together. Like this, he keeps talking and trying to convince her to give in to his request. And then he says, I'm giving you a time of 2 months. In 2 months, if you are not going to be prepared to come to me, then I will make sure that you are chopped up in my kitchen and we will all eat you up. Like that, he says. Now, this Sita is very sad, and yet, even despite all her sadness, she decides that she has to answer this Ravana. So, what she does is she places a blade of grass, the darbha grass, it is the holy grass. So, she places this darbha grass in a position so that it is separating her from him. She puts it between herself and Ravana. And then, looking at that grass, she starts speaking to Ravana. Now, she's not looking at Ravana, she's looking at the grass, but she's obviously speaking to Ravana only. She is not talking to him with anger. She is not talking to him rudely. In a quiet voice, with lot of pity for him, with lot of compassion on him, she talks to Ravana. She tells him that why do you have this unholy desire for me? You have your own legitimate wives. Why don't you be satisfied with them? It is not correct for you to have desire like this for a parastri. You give attention to your own wives. They are also beautiful. They are all full of gunas. You must not behave like this, she tries to tell him. And then she tells that when my Rama comes here, he will make sure that you are punished. And then she even begs Ravana that, why don't you go and seek friendship with Rama? It is not correct of you to behave like this. You approach Rama with a friendly spirit and he will accept you. You hand me over back to Rama. I am fit only for Rama. I am not going to ever be your companion. I cannot be like that. She tells all these things. And she says to Ravana, Vidita sahi dharmagnaha sharanagata vatsalaha tena maitri bhavatute yadi jivitum ichhasi. If you want to be alive, if you have a desire for your life, then you go and approach Rama and take his hand in friendship. Go with friendship towards him. He is such a dharmagnya. He is a righteous person. And anybody who is approaching him with surrender, anybody who seeks his protection, he is Sharanagata Vatsalaha. He will accept those who seek him and seek his protection. So he will accept you also. Although you have committed such a heinous offense, although you have done such a great crime by abducting me like this, yet if you approach him for protection and you say, I'm surrendering, and you say, I'm ready to hand over Sita, he will accept your friendship and he will take me back and he will not do anything to you. But if you don't do like this, if you are bent on sticking to your own wish like this, then my Rama will come here and he will make sure that you are no longer living. She wants Ravana like this. And yet, Ravana has no sense. He tells those Rakshasis who are around her, around Sita, that do something, do whatever it takes. But it is up to you now. You have to convince her to yield to me. And if she doesn't, then I will, after 2 months, I will wait for 2 months. If she does not agree, then I'm going to eat her up. This ultimatum he gives, and he goes away from that Ashokavana. Now, the event that happened is a small thing, what we have described here. But what is it that is there for us in this to learn? So there are so many things that the acharyas have told about this episode. Now, you remember we said that before jumping across the ocean, Hanuman had thought that why is Rama grieving for a woman like this? So what if his wife has been lost? He should have been more detached. He should have forgotten this and gone ahead with his life just as usual. Why is he crying over a mere woman? You remember we said that. Now, when he sees Sita, Valmiki's shloka expresses how Hanuman's thought undergoes a 180-degree turn. Hanuman is now totally on the other side. He had thought why Rama is crying over a woman. Now what he says, Dushkaram kurute Ramo imam matta kashini Sitam vina mahabahu muhurtam api jivati. He has done such an impossible task. How is this Rama how is he able to still survive? How is he still living? How didn't he die in separation from from this Sita? That means he sees that Sita is such a person that in separation from her, it is not possible for Rama to survive. So he who said, what is there in a woman? Why is Rama crying over a woman? Now he is saying, how can this Rama live by being separated from her? It is really a miracle that Rama is still living by being separated from this Sita. Then he further says, He thought, no, why all these vanaras are to be sent? Why so much hangama to be done for a woman? He had thought like that. Now what does he think? Yadi Rama samudrantam medinim parivartayet asyaha krite jagat chapi yuktam iti eva me mati. If, for the sake of this Sita, Rama turns the entire earth upside down, if he searches everywhere in the universe and he turns the entire universe, the ocean, the earth, everything, he makes it upside down and he searches for her without giving up any place, then I feel, it is my opinion, that that is perfectly fair of him to do so. Why is he saying this? Because now he's seen the Prabhava of Sita. He has seen the form of Sita. He has seen the guna of Sita. And now he understands that yes, indeed, this woman is something who is very much far, far, far special and far, far, far divine as compared to any ordinary, normal woman in this world. So he understands what is the bhava of Rama. So here, it is very difficult for Rama and Sita to have survived separate from each other. And yet, here the Acharyas ask that, just like Hanuman told, how is it that Rama is managing to live although he's separated from her? So much was the love, so much was the bond, so much was the affection, and they were so matched to each other so perfectly. How is it that they are both able to survive without each other? The Acharyas say that in reality, Rama is residing in the heart of Sita and Sita is living in Rama's heart. And therefore, because they are living in each other's heart, that is the only reason why, although physically they are separated, they are able to continue to live in this body. That is what the Acharyas explain. And that is exactly what Hanuman has now understood. Now, there is another shloka in this 16th sarga of the Sundarakanda where the Acharyas say that Hanuman, what he does, when he looks at Sita, he, in his mind's eye, he pictures Rama. And mentally, he creates a picture where he has Rama and next to him, he puts Sita. Now, he's seeing Sita physically with his eyes. In his mental eye, he conjures up an image where he places Rama and Sita next to each other. And he says, aha, this is such a wonderful sight. They are both so perfectly matched to each other. And there, this shloka Valmiki writes, Tulya Sheela Vayovrittam, Tulyabhijana Lakshanam, Raghavorhati Vaidehim, Tam Cheya Asatyekshana. This Rama is perfectly suited to Sita. In what all are they perfectly suited? In their character, they are well matched. Both of them have exemplary character. In their age, they are matched to each other. In their behavior, in their conduct, they are matched to each other. In their family background, they are matched to each other. So, in every possible way, in all Lakshanas, these two, this Raghava and this Vaidehi, are perfectly matched with each other. And this black-eyed Sita, Asitekshana, this black-eyed Sita is suited to Rama, says Anjaneya. Now, here the Acharyas explain that what is the bhava with which Anjaneya is saying this. He seems to imply that no doubt Sita is matched to Rama, but Rama is actually not capable of matching Sita. How do they conclude this? Because for everything he's been saying, Tulya, Tulya, they are both comparable, they are both well matched. And then, but at the end, when he's finishing the shloka, Valmiki gives Hanuman these words. What is Hanuman saying? He's saying, Tam Cheya Asitekshana, this black eyed Sita. That means he's pointing out that the black eyes of Sita are really, really, really so beautiful that there is nothing that can match them in the world. So, what does Hanuman mean by saying one with black eyes? So, he's trying to indicate that in everything else, they are both perfectly equal, but just these black eyes of Sita are equal to the beauty of the entire form of Rama. So, what he's trying to convey that Sita is far, far, far more beautiful than Rama. Sita's eyes are enough to cover, to compare to the entire beauty of the entire form of Rama. That means definitely Sita is more. He is putting Sita up higher on that pedestal. Why does this happen? So here the Acharyas explain that always the Acharyas have a definite preference, more love for the Devi. And there is an anecdote which is told to explain this. On the day of Vaikuntha Ekadashi, there is a very big that Swarga Dwara opens, and there is lot of festivities which happen in the Srirangam temple. Now, one day before that Vaikuntha Ekadashi day in Srirangam, Lord Ranganatha, he takes on an alankara which is called as Nachiyar Tirukolam. It is sometimes also called as Mohini Avatara. But in simple language, if we want to know, that is the day when Lord Ranganatha is dressed up as if he is Devi Ranganayaki, as if he is his consort, his Devi. So all the clothes which are normally put for Devi will be used to decorate Ranganatha. All the ornaments which are used to decorate Devi Ranganayaki on that day, they will be used to decorate Lord Ranganatha, to adorn his form. Now, there was an Acharya called Parashara Bhattar who came in the lineage after Swami Ramanujacharya. So one day what happened is this Lord Ranganatha, he would speak to this Parashara Bhattar. And he knew that Parashara Bhattar always had a special fondness for Ranganayaki Devi. So what he did is, on that day, when he was dressed up in that Nachiyar Tirukolam, in that Mohini Alankara, dressed up like the Devi herself, he calls that Parashara Bhattar. He tells the Archakas, please call him here. And when Parashara Bhattar comes there, the Lord looks at him and says, okay, so how do I look? Do I look like your mother? Do I look like Mata Ranganayaki? He asks. And this Parashara Bhattar looks from top to bottom and he says, yes, you look like that, but, and he drags his voice. Now this Lord is surprised. He says, what is this but? Why are you saying but? I have done all the Alankara exactly like how Devi has. So how can it be that I'm looking different? I must be also looking as good as her, isn't it? Then Parashara Bhattar says, I'm saying but because in my Mata's eyes, I have only seen always Karuna alone. You cannot imitate that look in her eyes. You may have worn her ornaments, you may have worn her clothes, but your eyes can never be as full of only Karuna like how Devi's eyes are. Why is he saying this? The Vedas and Upanishads explain. They say that one of the eyes of the Lord is the Surya and the other eye is the Chandra. So, with the eye which is the Chandra, he will look with love on his devotees. But with the eye of the Surya, he will also look on those wrongdoers and see what papas they have done and he will punish them. Just like we saw when Narasimha Avatara came, then to Hiranyakashipu, the Lord was angry. But to Prahlada, he was full of love and affection. He blessed him. So this Lord has one eye as Surya, one eye as Chandra. One, that Surya eye will look on all the wrongs that we have done and punish us for that. And it will look on with the Chandra eye, the Lord will look on us and see the good things that we have done, and he will give us affection. He will see our bhakti and he will give us affection. So the Lord we cannot say. Now, if we go and stand in front of the Lord, is he going to see our faults, our doshas, or is he going to see our bhakti? We cannot predict at what time, with which eye he will look upon us, isn't it? But the Devi, the Mata, has no sun-like eyes. Both her eyes are like Chandra only. So always from the eyes of the Devi, there is immense karuna. There is only karuna, there is only compassion for all of us because she sees us as her children. So that is why this Parashara Bhattar told the Lord that you can you can wear the same clothes, you can wear the same ornaments as Devi Ranganayaki, but that look in the eye you will not get the same. That my Mata's look is definitely better. That eye, that drishti that she has is always going to be full of karuna. Like that, here, Acharyas say, Anjaneya, when he compares Rama and Sita, he feels that only Sita's eyes alone are equal to the beauty of entire form of Rama. So he also falls into the Devi's category only. He is also like all these acharyas. He is also in support of Devi over the Lord. So all acharyas definitely they always have more affection and love towards the Mata. That is something that acharyas explain here. Now, we also noticed in today's story that Sita spoke to Ravana, right? Now, see, he has committed such a grave offense. He has abducted her. He has brought her here. He has kept her imprisoned in this Ashokavana. He is not letting her go back to Rama. He's all the time pestering her with his desire. And it's such a wrong, it's so much papa that he has done, so much aparadha he has done by doing all these things. And yet, why is she agreeing to speak to him? Because the Acharyas say she is Jaganmata. In this avatara, she has come maybe as Sita and she's playing that role of a human being. But at heart, she is none other than Mahalakshmi. She is none other than the Jaganmata. And with that motherly feeling, even if the child is going on the wrong path, she cannot get angry on that child. She will only want to correct him and bring him somehow to the correct path. And that is why Sita speaks to Ravana, although he has done such a great aparadha. Now, we said that she placed this darbha grass in front, in between both of them, and she spoke. Why did she place that darbha grass? So, the Acharya called Perivachan Pillai has given so many reasons, some 7-8 reasons for why she kept that blade of grass. First, he says, Ravana is a Raja. So, as per the protocol of the Rajas, whenever a Raja comes to speak to you, then you have to offer them a seat. Now, there was no place for Sita to tell him to sit down. So, she placed the blade of grass because the darbha can be used as a seat. In fact, in so many of our rituals and all that, we say that we are offering asanam when we are offering to the Lord, we do place a small piece of darbha grass there. So because he is a Raja, to give a seat to him, she put the darbha grass. Then she put the grass so that she can look at that grass, because Sita will not look at a Parapurusha. Even if she's just talking to him, she will never look at Ravana's face. So she needed something to look at. So she kept the grass there and she was talking to the grass. Then Acharya say, thirdly, she has put the grass to convey that you, all the riches what you are having, all these luxuries that you are promising me, this beautiful golden Lanka of yours, all this for me, in my eyes, it is nothing more than grass. I have no value for all these things. Just like grass, somebody looks at as having no value, all these things that you are trying to entice me with, they are nothing but grass in my eyes. Then Acharya say maybe she's trying to convey that you are like an animal because you have this unholy desire for me. And therefore, because you are an animal, you only deserve grass to eat. That is why I am offering you this grass, she's saying. Or Acharya say she's trying to convey that if we throw a blade of grass in the sea, it will push back that blade of grass, isn't it, after having cleaned it? Similarly, O Ravana, you approach Rama. And if you approach Rama, he will cleanse you. He will throw away, he will wipe away all your doshas and he will make you pure. So, to convey that, she's putting a blade of grass. Or she's trying to convey that my Rama is so powerful that even a blade of grass he can convert into an ayudha, into a weapon, and he can use it to destroy you. So that is why she put the blade of grass. What is this reference to making blade of grass into ayudha? We will see later when we talk about the Kakasura episode. So she's trying to caution Ravana. Or Acharya say it could be that I have pulled this grass out from the soil, and just as easily as I pull the grass out, I can actually destroy you. But I'm not going to do that. I'm waiting for Rama to come and rescue me because he is my husband and it is his dharma as my husband to come and rescue me. But actually, I can also pull you, I can destroy you just as easily as I pulled out the grass. Or maybe Devi is trying to convey to him that you remember this grass when in Vamana Avatara, Shukracharya tried to obstruct Bali from giving the dana to Vamana. That time, Vamana, the Lord in the Vamana form, had you know that story how Shukracharya didn't want Bali to give dana. So as a last resort, he went and stuck in that spout of the Kamandalu, and then the water was not pouring for giving the dana. At that time, Vamana realized that Shukracharya is blocking it, and he took a darba grass and he poked that spout of the Kamandalu, and that poked Shukracharya's eyes. So, like that, maybe Sita is trying to say that just as Vamana destroyed the eyesight of Shukracharya with this blade of grass, this darba which I have kept here may destroy your vision also. Or maybe she's trying to say that if you continue like this with all this wrong desire and you insist on having your way, then very soon your entire Lanka is going to be destroyed. And finally, when Lanka is completely destroyed, nothing will be surviving in this Lanka except only grass. Only grass will be left in this place, and all this beautiful city of yours will be completely destroyed. So like this, the acharyas have explained very beautifully that what are all the reasons why she put that blade of grass between her and Ravana while talking to him. Now, we saw further that Sita told Ravana that approach Rama like a friend. Now, why did she tell this? Actually, what was in her mind? She wanted to say that you have made such a big mistake. So, for making a mistake like this, actually, there is no forgiveness for you. But you go and fall at Rama's feet, and he is such a Sharanagata Vatsala that he will forgive you. She wanted to tell him like that. But then it seems the Acharyas explain that Sita must have thought that if I tell like this to Ravana, and later, once I am united with Rama, if Rama asks me, how did you talk to Ravana? And then I tell Rama that I said, go and fall at Rama's feet, then Rama will get angry. Why will Rama get angry? Because it is not the protocol between kings who are equals to tell one king to go and fall at the feet of another king. So Sita is imagining all this, that if I tell all this to Rama, then Rama will get angry that I did not follow the Rajya protocol. And I did like this. So in order to avoid that, she's saying, she's not telling Ravana, go and fall at his feet. She's telling him, go and hold his hand in friendship, because she cannot afford to show Ravana as if he is inferior to Rama. So here the Acharyas tell us that this Rama and this Sita, they are separated by that mighty ocean, and they are separated by thousands of miles. And although they are not with each other, both of them are so perfectly able to understand. Sita is able to so perfectly anticipate what will be Rama's wish, and she is talking according to what would be the wish of Rama. So that is why the Acharyas say that they are called, Rama and Sita are called as Divya Dampati. For us, in this bhumi, all of us who are living with our spouses, we are only Dampati. But Rama and Sita are Divya Dampati. Now, they are the ideal. And just as Rama and Sita perfectly were matched to each other, perfectly were in harmony with each other's wishes, we also should try to have that same kind of harmony. If we try that, if we do that, and between this dampati of this worldly life, if we keep the Divya Dampati at all times, if we are both united in our desire to achieve that Lord's lotus feet, to achieve that Sita Mata's lotus feet, when every Dampati is having the Divya Dampati as their goal, then our life will be totally transformed. That is what the Acharyas explain. So these are some of the things we have learned in today's satsang. Let us offer gratitude at the lotus feet of the Lord, at the lotus feet of Acharyas, because they have blessed us with all these wonderful explanations, which otherwise we would not understand by just reading the story. So let us pray that the Lord's grace, Acharya's grace, will always be on us. Mangalam Kosalendraya, Mahaniya Gunabdhaye, Chakravarti Tanujaya, Sarvabhaumaya Mangalam, Veda Vedanta Vedyaya, Megha Shamalamurtaye, Pumsam Mohana Rupaya, Punyashlokaya Mangalam, Pitrabhaktaya Satatam, Bhratrabhisa Sitaya, Nanditakhila Lokaya, Ramabhadraya Mangalam, Srimate Raghuviraya, Setu Langita Sindhave, जितराक्षसराजाय रणधीराय मङ्गलम् मङ्गलाशासनपरैर्मदाचार्यपुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्यैः सत्कृतायास्तु मङ्गलम्. Thank you everybody, and we'll meet again tomorrow and see what happens next. Namaskar.